Hey everyone, welcome to another Walking with Christ video. In this video, this is what we're going to talk about: helpfulness. Sometimes, honestly, the help that we need is not necessarily always the help that we want. And how that has shown up in our lives, sometimes I can even say for myself, there are situations and times to where I was praying, where I was, in a sense, sometimes even just hoping for people or something to come into my life that was going to be helpful or supportive of something that I felt would bring me closer or get me through a moment or a challenge that was currently present. And with that, I started to really gain the perception and the awareness that sometimes that help isn't going to show up in a way that I perceive as ideal. And in that may be an opportunity for growth within me. There may be an opportunity for growth within you to be able to come into whatever it is that you're meant to do in that moment, in that season, in that journey, whatever the case may be. But you have to be present and mindful that sometimes, again, the help you need is not necessarily the help that you want. In 1 Thessalonians 5:11, it talks about building each other up and encouraging one another. So if you are in a position and you have the opportunity to help someone, think about how you show up in that moment. If you're in a position of leadership, think about your tendencies and the trends of how you show up in that moment. Because it's important, no matter whether you're in a position of leadership or not, to show up in a way where you're listening, where the person who is receiving that help, receiving that gift of help from you, feels like they're safe, feels like there's care and a patience to get to know what is going on in that position of help. So when it comes to that, it's not helpful to present yourself with the mentality of closed mouths don't get fed. Now, that may be a general statement that some people use, and I've heard many times throughout life. And your intent may not be ill. Your intent may be pure. There may be a desire, an interest in that person growing into the best version of themselves and trusting you to ask for help. But for some people, it's just not that simple. For some people, it's one of those things to where they've asked for help throughout their life and they just haven't received it or gotten it in a way that is encouraging or that builds them up. It may not be what they thought that would transpire in that moment, but they come away more disheartened, feeling like a door is shut in their face, because sometimes that help is coming from a position of unwillingness, or even for some people, because the interest of that person and the interest of the person that can give them help don't align, they decide, you know what, that's not something I'm going to support. And that's a choice they have. Wow. What I found throughout my journey is that, especially when I was in positions of leadership, is that if somebody confides in me and asks for help, especially for, good reasons, especially for reasons of, they're just trying to move forward with something in life. It could be their goals, aspirations, or something that was challenging to them. Then, hey, let's sit down. Let's talk about it. Let's go on a walk. Let's talk about it. Let's take some time together at some point and really go through what is happening, what the person has tried, what has worked, what has not worked for them as far as help, what they've done themselves. And that's really getting to the point to where they are, in a sense, as I said, getting the help they need, but we're doing it in a way to where it's meeting them where they are. Everyone's experiences are different. Just because one person is faced help and support in some way doesn't mean other people have dealt with similar experiences. Again, some people struggle to get help. So if we carry forward a closed mouths don't get fed in a way that is honestly not aware of what each person goes through, then that may be an opportunity missed. That may be an opportunity missed to reach into that person, to support that person. No, from my standpoint in leadership and just in general, we ain't gotta have any, much of anything in common. Because the fact that you asked, the fact that you sought me out, or vice versa, I'm seeking somebody else out. To me, that moment is a moment of vulnerability. That is a moment of that person possibly dealing with, I've been reaching in a lot of different directions, and they're just trying to get in a direction to where they can feel like they're gaining some traction in their lives, where they feel like they are at a point where they can move forward, even if they're still progressing through some things. They're working on some things, as we all are. That they just hear, get support, feel valued, feel cared for in that moment. I think for maybe some people who have an abundance of that in their life, sometimes we could possibly overlook for those that have that, people who don't. And not everybody does. Sometimes when people out there show up in support of others, it could be one of those things to where, and you need to evaluate this yourself. I don't know it to be true to anyone, unless if I've been in a close circle with any respective person, to be able to really, be aware and observant of this. But you're gonna have to assess whether, hey, does my help look different for some people as opposed to others? And that's something I used to evaluate when I was in leadership. I used to evaluate, hey, does my help look different for some people as opposed to others? And that's important because from an observational standpoint, from a perception standpoint, especially when you're in a role of leadership, you don't want your people working for you feeling like you give help in very willing ways, what appears to be willing ways, to some people, but not others. That's not the way you should function. When I say I show up to help somebody and meet them where they are, it don't matter who you are, what background you are. I'm gonna show up in the same way. I'm gonna show up with the same interest and intent of caring for you. And there was certain points in my life where, when it was clear to me that my intent was foggy, where the perception of how I show up to help wasn't true to who I was, needed to change that. But I also started to understand that the way you show up to help, you can grow. You can be better in that. You can not just sit there in a position where you say, you know what, I'm gonna have a blanket way of doing things. This is the way I'm gonna choose to show up, even if that choice isn't the best thing, and stay stuck in my ways as far as how I prefer to help people. And how you prefer to help people, that's up to you. But being the difference that people need is definitely gonna only take shape for the diverse people that you cross paths with, if you choose to grow and enhance your viewpoint and awareness of what that means for each person. My approach to one person and how I show up to help them usually isn't going to be the same as the way I approach helping other people. How I approach one team and helping them usually is not going to be the same way that I approach another team. It's all going to be genuine to who I am. That's always going to be with, the foundation of honoring God. But dynamics are different in different places. People are different, and I never want to assume. Now, it doesn't mean I don't trip and assume every once in a while, but I prefer not to. When I reflect, I account to that, and honestly, if I found that I wasn't the help that the person or the people needed in this situation, I go back and repair that, because there's trust involved in that. There's credibility involved in that. And if we get so deeply connected to a certain way of doing things, we may not be doing things in the best way. And the best way, for me, again, is always the way that honors God. But having that awareness, being able to really get to the depths of what a person is dealing with, what they're going through. Because if I was to assume, I may miss a very important moment, a very important variance in what they are needing help in, as opposed to what somebody else is. So it's definitely important when I say being the help that people need, that it's about truly what's best for that person. And that, again, don't have to be connected with me in any way. But God is love. And if I say God is love and I show up in that way to care for others, then I'm going to make sure that when we have a conversation where help is present, that what needs to happen, what needs to be said, because in helping other people, I don't want to set nobody up to fail. I don't want to put you in the wrong situation. If I got to say, you know what, hey, it'd be best if, this is a conversation you also have with this, that, and other person, or maybe we need to go down the path of discovery together to be able to learn more about X, Y, and Z that you're going through. But ultimately, I don't want to set that person up to fail. And giving them advice, giving them coaching in a way that doesn't really help prepare them for whatever God has meant for them, that's not the way I want to show up to help people. Sometimes it could be a very tough conversation, and helping people. But that tough conversation's done in love. It's not done in a way where I'm throwing darts at that person. No. We're going to talk about it in a way to where we get in the root of it together, so you can go down the path of discovering what is needed. And any opportunity that a person that can show up in that help can help guide them toward that they do that. But they do it again in care and love. In care and love. You know, I remember when my mom was alive, there are some times where she would call me, and you know, she had a mental disorder. It was a form of schizophrenia called schizoaffective disorder. And there's times where, especially when I got older, when me and her would talk, and she would say to me, sometimes she would call me because she wanted to just, you know, get out what she was saying, or get out what she was feeling, and just not be judged for it, to feel listened to. And that's all she needed. That's all she wanted. The help that she needed in some of those moments was just to be heard. You know, I wasn't in those conversations to, in my opinion, doing anything great or out the norm of what I was capable of. But to her, it meant everything. To her, it meant everything. And you have to decide, when you show up to help people, is it about it being what you need, or it's about being what they need? That will determine whether you are showing up in a way to help people that is the difference. It wasn't much for me in those conversations, but it was everything to her. And it helped her deal with some of the root aspects of her problems, of her issues, her concerns, her needs. And even in those situations, there were some very honest points being made. It was done in love. It was done in care. And yes, some may, you know, perceive that, yeah, it's your mom, of course it would. But straight up, I approach conversations with everybody like that. Everyone. You don't have to be related to me. You don't have to be closely connected to me to be the help that is needed. And that's where it hits home. It's not about the person's connection to you. Being the help that people need doesn't matter whether you're in a leadership role, whether you're in an environment. It is about being what's needed in that moment. And that's your opportunity. Whether in growth, whether in fellowship, whether in coaching, whether in just listening. The question is, for each and every one of you, is that going to be an opportunity that you take? Or is it going to be an opportunity you let pass by? I'm not asking for you to be perfect in helping people, but if we strive to be better in it day by day, it can only make things better around us and within us. God bless.